breaks and then the morning sends the sun high in the sky. Who would hide from heaven's glory? Who would pass the challenge by? La 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 la.
There's a morning for every nation when the sun's high in the sky. There's a time for every people to affirm their destiny. La 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 la
Even so, all of us together can create a better land. Leave the past, a new tomorrow waits for all who understand. There's a morning for every nation when the sun's high in the sky. There's a time for every people to affirm their destiny. La 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 la. Even so, all of us together can create a better land. Leave the past, a new tomorrow waits for all who understand. La 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 la. Leave the past, a new tomorrow waits for all who understand.
And this next song is titled Song of the Nightingale.
Nightingale, nightingale, sing of joy through the night. Teach my heart to impart everywhere your delight. Sing of moon rays on the rain, sing that love's not in vain. Every grief, every wrong has its ending in song. Nightingale, nightingale, sing of joy through the night. Teach all men how to spin clouds of gloom into light. Without silence, what is song? Without night, where is dawn? Were it not for men's woes, who would smile at our rose? Nightingale, nightingale, sing of joy through the night. Let each tone silence groan, earth and heaven unite. Morning laughter, evening tears, snow and blossoms of faith. Joy must sing in the night to face change unafraid. Nightingale, nightingale, nightingale.
This is a letter from Paramahansa Yogananda to students and friends dedicated to the new year of 1937. The new year has come to greet you with new hopes and new determination, new will to achieve new activities. In the temple of the new year, renew your reverence for the unlimited hidden power of God within you. The trails and trials and the yawning chasms of woe have been left behind in the dark night of the past. Now you are entering the daylight of a newborn hope of the new year. Cast off the coil of the decayed thoughts of the past years. Be reincarnated into a vital living of the new year. Every regret for shattered hopes of success must be transformed into the joy of new achievement during the new year. Old sorrows and disappointments must be buried beneath the sepulchre of the past year. Those dark bandits of discouragement must not remain any longer to steal the wealth of your desire to succeed. Every day in the new year must become an altar for God of new living, new achievements in wisdom, and new joy. Every day in the new year must bring hope and cheer to yourself and all humanity. Take all the salvaged treasures of good experiences from the sea of past experience and use them to bury new accomplishments in the new year. In the garden of the new year, culture the seeds of well-planned new activities until they grow into fragrant flowering plants of diverse successes. Let every day in the new year become a step upward on the ladder of your self-realization. Make every day of the new year a better day than the previous one for greater effort to succeed in business and family happiness, and increasing the ever-new joy contact of God in meditation. The old year has gone, but the new year's full of treasures for you to use. Bury the bad habit of failure in the tomb of the old year and reincarnate your life energy in the vitality of the new year. May the new year spread the example and message of your renewed life and renewed power unto all creation.
This is a reading from The New Path, which is the autobiography, actually, of Swami Kriyananda, Yogananda's direct disciple. And he's recalling the first New Year's Eve that he had with the Master. On New Year's Eve in 1948, we gathered in the main chapel for a midnight meditation, again led by Master. At one point during the proceedings, he beat a large gong softly, then with gradually increasing volume, alternately decreasing and increasing the volume in waves. Imagine this as a sound of Om, he told us, spreading outward to infinity. At the same instant, 100 miles south in Encinitas, another group of disciples was meditating in the main room of the hermitage. They, too, heard the gong as Master was striking it. One of the monks later told me, it was as though it were being struck in the hallway just outside the room where we were in. The meditation that followed at Mount Washington was enthralling. Midnight came. Suddenly, waves of noise sweeping up from the city below and inward from the surrounding neighborhood. Factory whistles, car horns, shouts as countless celebrants ushered in the new year. The door of a neighboring house opened and a voice with a tone almost of desperation shouted into the night, "Happy New Year!" What a contrast between the frantic, emotional, almost febrile excitement and the sounds that were being unleashed by the thousands of celebrants around us. and the calm, expanding soul joy we experienced in ourselves, in the sublime peace of our little chapel. And how blessed, I reflected, how wonderful it was to be in this holy place at the feet of my divine guru. I prayed that the new year would bring me an ever-deepening awareness of God's love.
Well, that definitely can describe many of our experiences, certainly mine, where everything's going great, and then there's one little twist, and then suddenly, it comes up just this much short. There's a metaphor, a story told in the Bhagavatam, which is a Indian scripture, when Krishna was always trying to play with his mother, and she was saying, yes, yes, but I have to do work now. And so she would make ghee, she would make butter, and then he would knock over the jars so that he could eat the butter. And so she said, you've got to stop doing this, and he'd say, no. And so finally she went to tie him up out of sheer frustration. And she got a chair, and she started to tie him to it, and then when she pulled the ends of the rope together to tie it firm, they were just this short. She couldn't get them to reach. So she got some more rope and tied it to the end and wrapped it around, and it was always this much short. And she finally said, because she knew that he was an incarnation of the divine, she said, Lord, please allow me to bind you. And then the rope fit, and so she was able to tie him. But in our lives, so often we can encounter that, where it's just this much short, where I had an experience recently where I was feeling a deep meditation, sort of a series of deep meditations. I was very much enjoying it, saying, oh, this is excellent. And then was reading some books and listening to some talks of Swami Kriyananda, and again, just feeling great inspiration and starting to feel like, okay, I remember when I used to feel tired and grouchy, and I'm glad those days are over now. And then in my mind, the little voice said, you know what really could help you celebrate this sort of enlightened state of mind would be some ice cream. And I said, that's a good idea. Yeah, I'll have some ice cream. And another part of me said, you know, you just got over a cold. And I said, that's right, I just got over a cold. So I got over it, so I can have all the ice cream I want. So I celebrated with 1 dose of ice cream, and then because it was so good, I thought, why not have a 2nd dose of ice cream? And then just because, after all, it's the new year, why not have a 3rd dose of ice cream? And I woke up this morning with a cold, a big fat cold and a fever. And so it's just like suddenly, where's that joy? Where's that enlightened state of mind? Where's that happiness? It's all just gone. And it's all my fault, actually. I woke up wanting to blame the universe for this awful feeling. I got sick. I got sick magically. How did I get sick? It's my bad luck. But tracing the thread back, I saw the causative agency there. And that's basically the struggle we go through constantly. We sort of have these 2 voices. It's sort of epitomized sometimes by the angel on one shoulder and the demon on the other shoulder. In the Bhagavad Gita, it's a story, if you're familiar with it, of a civil war, a war within a family, 2 sides, the good guys and the bad guys, basically. And they are fighting over a kingdom. But Yogananda explained that that whole story is actually an allegory for the inner battle that goes on within each of us. That we've got the forces of good, the virtues, that part of us that wants to expand, that wants to be kind and be positive, and then the other guys who are saying, you know, they never say, be horrible, because they'd be too recognizable. You'd say, no, I don't want to be horrible. They say, you've been good enough for long enough. Now it's time to rest, being so kind. I mean, after all, you know, you should think of yourself too. And, you know, again, this has to be taken in balance. We do have to think of ourselves. We do have to, you know, we can't die trying to help, you know, everybody if it's going to wipe us out. But at the same time, we've come to the end of this year, and we're ready to begin the new year. And this is always such a nice time because we say, look, it doesn't really matter what 2011 has been about. Maybe it's been glorious, maybe it's been difficult, but I'm starting again. I'm starting anew. It's 2012, despite all Mayan calendars in the world or whatever other scary things have been promised about 2012. Here we are. We're still here. And so I'm going to go forth. Now, sometimes it's helpful to sort of take a cosmic step back, because ending one year and beginning a new year full of new intention is not unlike ending an old incarnation and starting a new incarnation. The only difference is that when from incarnation to incarnation, we don't always remember what we did in the past and all that. And Yogananda said that's a good thing, because then we start this life full of hope, full of encouragement. He said if you died of cancer in your last life, then if you got some little bump on your hand, you would be terrified and fear that maybe it would be cancer all over again. And he said, you don't need that. So it's merciful that these things are hidden from us. And that's a good attitude that we should have just in life in general. Whatever has happened. I was thinking back on this year, and at first I thought, oh, well, there was this difficulty or that difficulty, and this didn't quite work out. But I thought, what does any of that matter? I mean, sure, we know life has its ups and downs, and that in a way, wouldn't it be great if it were always just up all the time, if the pendulum could just swing this way and stay there. But on the other hand, sometimes when we have failures, when we have mistakes, those are the things we learn the most from. Or those are the things that help us make a course correction in our lives. And we say, I've gone in this direction, it doesn't work, I'm not going there anymore. This is the way I want to go. And sometimes we find only because we hit a wall and kind of got a little bruise and said, where did that come from? But then we learn and then go on. So then how can we say this was actually a bad thing? It was an extremely helpful thing. So, and what is a failure? What is a mistake anyway? I mean, all that we're doing is learning in the school of life. Yogananda described life as a school in one place, and that we're here to learn lessons. He also said in another place, this life is a little bit like a hospital and a zoo. And I've often thought of that sort of, it does sometimes very much feel like that. But in any case, we should begin with new hope, new expectation of things working out. We can't always control outer circumstances, as you heard of this yogi who tried to get everything perfectly right. We can't always control these things, but we can control our inner circumstances. We can say, okay, I choose to be positive. I choose to try to find the silver lining in the situation. Or I choose to open up to more success rather than feeling like, oh, well, I'm sure I couldn't be that successful in whatever it is that we're trying. Of course we can. Because if we attune our power to the power of the universe, then we can succeed.